Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is actually Saturday, but I still want to do a how to bass. I've been doing the 30K tutorials, and this actually started out as a 30K tutorial, but I wanted to make it its own how to bass because it's kind of awesome. This is a track, a bass, and a track I'm working on. And this is what it sounds like. Yeah. All right, so the relevant stuff is these guys here. You don't want to do that because there's things elsewhere up there. These two automation clips are controlling this guy here, and then my phone is buzzing because my dad's talking to me. That's okay though. Having a nice conversation with my father. But now I'm making a video. So anyway, not this guy. Organization. Also, if you're wondering how to get this is the spectral view of a WAV file. What you do is you go in here, you right click it, and you get options. And I thought it looked cool, so I did that. But to do this, we'll actually have to bring it back to the waveform view because certain things are rather necessary. As mostly just for aesthetics for now. However, it does actually make it pretty easy to determine like what kind of modulation is happening in here. Anyway, the bass that we're working on is all this. So this is what this all sounds like by itself. I turned the reverb off. And such. So this is the part one of the how to bass, where I go over just the nitty-gritty details of settings and movements and places and locations that made the sound, and then part two will be how I describe and explain everything that happened. Boy, is there a lot that happened in this sound. It's probably the most like directly traditional sort of bass that I made. Like it's a newer sound. It might be a little bit familiar to you if you ever listen to Joe Ford or AIF. I still don't know how to pronounce that. But what I ended up doing to accomplish this is actually kind of old school. I still use hardware. I still use resampling. But as you see, I have this layering business going on. I have a separate sub. Oh my God, what's happening? All right. So this sound starts off as a citrus. So the way that the sound works is the result of ring modulation. You could accomplish this actually in massive, which makes sense because Joe Ford uses massive. But you use it in massive. There's the ring modulation oscillator, but then there's also the bend stop plus and minus. And if you ever look at the waveform while you're doing it, it actually makes a lot of sense that it's a similar process. But the way that I'm doing this here is actually very simple. I have one oscillator, FMing output oscillator, which is operator 1, and then I have 3 oscillating output 2. Operator 2. Operator 2 is being ring modulated and by this shape, which are created by engaging half and even and going up to almost a saw wave. You see it's angled a little bit because it's not going quite as high. I mess with the phase, which is what this does, and then I also engaged the pre-filter, which sort of introduces these sine wavy things. That's what that does, and this is what I use to do that. I'm not actually controlling any of the FM here. Also, oscillator 2 is set to be 10, like 0.001 pitch ratio away from 0.25, which is the main amount. And this is creating sort of internal modulation. Without it, it'd be pretty straight. There's also like a chorus and stuff happening. I think. No, there's no chorus at all. So where's that modulation? Oh yeah, because the operator 3 is also set to be above it. That's what it sounds like without any sort of pitch differences. This is like very vague Reese modulation. Anyway, in this patcher that I have here, this is where I have bandpass and then also a sub reinforcement, but as you see, I'm actually not using it. This could go away. It's not exactly the same. Over here is where I have all of the resulting recordings of what I had done. However, you might notice that there's no MIDI anywhere. The only MIDI is this. This is the sub that I use to reinforce it. Which came from a pattern that I had made here. And then you see there's Edison, because that's obviously I recorded to resample it, but where's the MIDI that I used to automate the bandpass? And actually, the answer to that question is I did not have MIDI. I just played it. I just manually modulated it because I didn't actually expect it to go anywhere. So I did that because I didn't want to waste time putting down MIDI and automating. But if you did want to automate it, you would automate it this parameter right here. This knob that I'm looking at right there. That's the knob you want to automate. That's this position. That's all I did. Is I just moved this around, and you see there's actually a very large amount of doing here. Each of these spots represents one length of 4 bars, which is the length of the time that this automation took place, or the MIDI took place. So I just kind of messed around with it a whole bunch of times, and then I resampled it. And the resampling actually did have a set amount of time, just so that it would remain the same. This first step actually did a lot of the work for us. Now, when I recorded this, I actually did modulate parameters, and I modulated the sharpness. I did the bandpass. I just messed around with it manually, and I just did it as a sound and moved around. This is the only parameter I modulated, however. And as you see, there's a phaser. There's a phaser on. That's actually not. That wasn't there when that was not when I was doing the recording. I was experimenting with it to make it work, to see if it worked. But for the main recording of this, I modulated the sharpness, which kind of sounds like this. You might notice that when I did that, the presence of the watery sort of squelchy sound that not necessarily desirable kind of went away, and that's why. I had it on hill distortion, which sort of accentuates the sort of spaciness of the sound. I'll explain what that does, why in the second part. And I have unison engaged. I don't believe I'm doing anything special. Nope, just unison, blurred, some phase, no prism, no phaser, no like filters, nothing. Just regular, and then messing around with the sharpness. Not gonna sneeze. I might sneeze. I sneezed. So part number 2, or 3 rather, the third step, which is the second resample step. Largely the same thing. Modulated that hill mode on, but this time with asymmetry that's stereo and unison that's stereo. And then in the unison window, I took away some frequencies because they got a little too harsh. In fact, this whole thing is too harsh. It didn't really work out the way that I wanted it to. So as a result, using it required layering. And this is where the fun part happens. So after I recorded all that, I took all 3 steps, which is the first bare recording. The first resample step. And the third resample step. I'm gonna turn back waveform mode on these, because this is a part that gets important. All right. So you also might have noticed that they all sounded different, is because I put them all in their individual channels, and I'm EQing them individually. This isn't just a straight low, mid, high split. This is I took the parts that I wanted to keep of each individual section, and then I compensated for it in the other two until I got a set that worked. And also, they are all high pass a little bit. And then the fourth one is the sub. Which I just made in Harmor. It's a saw wave that's filtered down with keyboard tracking and distorted a little bit. That's all there is to that. Don't even need to use Harmor to make that, but I did anyway. And it's equalized. Okay, this is silly. Like, what's happening here is silly. This is if you saw my Facebook page recently, and I said I like it when stupid ideas end up being the right decision. This is the stupid idea I was talking about, and I'll explain what that is and why in the second part. I mean, it'll become obvious when I get to that part in the in this, but it's also why it's kind of sounding weird and like right now. But anyway, I brought out the waveform view because one thing that happens when you resample something is that the start time ends up changing. So like if I were to actually move these around to the correct start positions, you can actually see that the start time is a bit different in between all the resample steps. So they're out of phase is what's happening. So we gotta put it in phase. Now I did try to actually put it in phase just here to have all three of them just be in phase, but even if I did put it in phase here, it gets out of phase like later. And so what ended up happening was that I would take the parts that I wanted, and then I would move them in phase here. I would actually make them in phase here. And you also are seeing that they're kind of opposite phase, and that doesn't actually matter because what's actually opposite phase is the low end frequencies, and I'm high passing those out and using a sub anyway. So there is phase cancellation, but it's a kind that just makes a different sound, not just no sound. Though if you didn't want to solve that, you could just reverse polarity and then you were fine. So I individually corrected for phase at every part of the modulation that I took out of it. Yeah, so that's that. Now back here, I have the reverb that I told you about, which I turned off for the purposes of using it over there. Yeah, so this is just a reverb. It's on. It's got a pretty high decay, and then I'm automating the wet frequency, or the wet value over here, just to kind of give some accenting, stereoness, and also like it leads into the sound. It's kind of cool. It's being compressed heavily, just to keep the frequencies in check. And now this business. So without this is what the bass sounds like. It's good, but it's not quite there. And so I had an EQ and I brought the high frequencies and I was moving this around. We'd like, where's the frequency? Where? And I noticed that as I was sweeping it around while it was playing, it actually sounded pretty sweet. And so I automated it. And now what's happening is that this huge band pass here is accentuating certain moments of the sound, and I'm automating that with this automation clip. Like this part. Doesn't sound nearly as awesome without it. Now, this is what I refer to as a stupid idea because this is like a horribly damaging EQ right now, and that's no longer an EQ; it's actually a filter. But the reason why it works as well as it does is because I have this compressor on, and because I'm compressing it so hard, I can have wildly super huge changes like that, and it'll only affect the overall character of the sound and not just push frequencies into your ear until you're dead. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for this sound. Yeah. So if you have any questions about any of this, go watch part 2 because I'll answer a lot of them. And as usual, have a nice day.